What would you do if the man sent to find the missing came back missing himself, and the only thing the search team recovered was his uniform, standing upright in the snow, moving on its own? It wasn't the wind. The wind had stopped 4 hours before they arrived, and whatever was inside that uniform stopped moving the exact moment the first officer reached out to touch it. Erik Solberg had spent 22 years teaching other men how to survive the Hardangervidda Plateau. He was not the kind of man who got lost. He was the kind of man they sent to find the ones who did. The Norwegian Arctic Crisis Assessment Program, what insiders called NOCAS, had trained fewer than 60 rangers to operate solo in conditions that kill experienced mountaineers within hours. Erik was one of them. He had completed winter crossings that the program itself no longer attempts. He had pulled 3 men out of whiteout conditions using nothing but a compass and muscle memory. He disappeared on a routine inspection. 4 hours from base. Weather classified as stable. The rescue team reached the inspection cabin on the second day. The door was locked from the inside. The safety latch, a heavy iron mechanism that requires deliberate force to engage, was fully closed. The windows were intact. The thermometer mounted on the exterior wall read -31 degrees Celsius. The thermometer inside the cabin read -3. The heater was off. Erik's skis were outside, planted vertically in the snow 40 meters from the cabin door, exactly where his tracks ended. No fall, no struggle, no deviation. The tracks simply stopped, and the skis were standing upright as if someone had stepped out of them and descended directly into the earth. The team leader radioed base at 14:22. His exact words preserved in the official log were these: "The snow here is wrong. I don't know how else to say it. The snow is wrong." Nobody understood what he meant. Not until the following morning, 800 meters northeast across the open plateau, when they found Erik's uniform lying flat on the surface of the snow. Still zipped, still shaped. The arms positioned at the sides with a precision the forensic report would later describe as deliberate. Rising and falling. Slowly, at the rate of a sleeping man's breath. The team leader stood 3 meters away for 11 seconds before he called the others. 11 seconds that he later told investigators felt like standing at the edge of something that had no bottom. By the time they reached him, the movement had stopped. The uniform was empty, and beneath it, pressed into the ice from below, pushing upward, were the distinct impressions of 5 human fingers. The dimensions matched Erik's hand exactly. They found the jacket on the 3rd day. 800 meters northeast of the cabin, in the open plateau where nothing grows and nothing hides, lying flat on the surface of the snow as if someone had carefully placed it there. Still zipped, still shaped. The arms were positioned at the sides with a precision that search teams later described in their reports as, and this is a direct quote from the Norwegian forensic file, deliberate. The team leader approached alone first. Standard protocol when the situation has no protocol. He stopped 3 meters away. The jacket was rising and falling. Slowly, rhythmically. The chest area expanding and contracting at approximately the rate of a sleeping man's breath. He stood there for 11 seconds before calling the others. 11 seconds that he later told investigators felt like standing at the edge of something that had no bottom. When the team reached him, the movement had stopped. They turned the jacket over with a telescoping pole, the kind used to probe avalanche debris. It was empty. The interior lining was dry. No body heat registered on the thermal scanner. Whatever had been animating that fabric from the inside had finished what it was doing before they could document it. But what they found beneath the jacket was not in any Arctic rescue manual. Pressed into the ice underneath, from below, pushing upward, were the distinct impressions of 5 human fingers. A full handprint, palm flat against the underside of the frozen surface, as if someone had tried to push through from underneath, and the ice had simply recorded the attempt and refused. The dimensions matched Eric's hand exactly. The Oslo Forensic Laboratory received the ice sample 4 days later. Their report used a phrase that has never appeared in any other official Norwegian document before or since. They wrote that the fiber of Eric's jacket, at the points where it had contacted the snow, was not frozen into the surface. It was integrated. The synthetic material and the ice crystals had merged at a molecular level in a way that the laboratory had no existing classification for. They filed it under atmospheric anomaly, the same category used in 1974 for a case in the same coordinates that the Norwegian government had kept off public record for 23 years. The same category, the same coordinates. And then, the acoustic team arrived and pointed their equipment at the ground where the handprint had been found, and the reading came back at 18.9 Hz. Below the threshold of human hearing. The frequency you don't perceive with your ears. The frequency you feel pressing against the inside of your chest, like something on the other side of your rib cage, learning the shape of you from within. If you are listening to this with headphones right now, in a quiet room, you may already know exactly what that feels like. The 1974 case had a name. Halvard Nesse, mountain guide, 31 years operating in the Hardangervidda, disappeared in February, 6 months before anyone thought to look at the coordinates where Eric's jacket would be found 13 years later. When they finally located Halvard's equipment in August of that year, it had partially fused with a rock formation at the base of a glacial shelf. Not frozen to it, fused. The metal of his ice axe and the mineral surface of the stone had merged in a way that geologists from the University of Bergen classified, after 3 weeks of analysis, as physically impossible given the time frame. The case was archived as atypical geological incident. The file was not publicly accessible until 2001. But the case that broke the investigation open was not Halvard's. It was Astrid Moen's. Astrid was a glaciologist from Tromsø University who had requested solo field access to the same plateau region in March of 1974, 6 weeks before Halvard disappeared. She never came back. Her equipment was never found. For 27 years, her case existed only as a missing persons report with no leads and no follow-up. Until her field diary surfaced in a municipal archive in Bergen in 2001. The last entry was dated March 9, 1974. The handwriting, according to the graphologist who analyzed it, showed no signs of distress in the first 3 lines. The distress begins in the 4th line and accelerates through to the final sentence. She wrote, "At the plateau is breathing. I can hear my own name coming from inside the ice. It does not sound like an echo. It sounds like something that learned my name by listening to me say it to myself." The diary entry ends there. When the cabin where Eric had been stationed was demolished by municipal order in 2003, workers found something embedded in the floorboards directly beneath where his bunk had been. A metal buckle, serial number confirmed by the Norwegian Army Equipment Registry as belonging to Erik Solberg's thermal jacket. The wood had grown around it. Not cracked by it, not stained by it, grown around it, the fiber of the timber curling inward the way bark curls around a branch that has been part of a tree for decades. The process, according to the dendrology report, would require a minimum of 40 years under normal conditions. Eric had been missing for 16. There is a theory that exists outside of peer-reviewed literature. It has no institutional home. No university claims it, no government funds its research. But among specialists who study what they call frontier phenomena, the category of events that instruments can measure that science cannot yet classify, it has a name. The geometry of assimilation. The theory is this. In certain Arctic latitudes, where permafrost has existed for thousands of years, the substrate beneath the surface retains structural memory of organic matter that has died within it. Bone, tissue. The specific density of a human body pressing down through snow for long enough. Over millennia, certain coordinates develop what these researchers describe as a form of geological hunger. Not metaphorically, but functionally. A measurable tendency of the terrain to recognize human geometry and draw it inward. Not to destroy it, to preserve it. On its own terms. The last detail from Erik Solberg's case was not released by the Norwegian authorities. It came from one of the demolition workers who was present in 2003 when the cabin floor was removed. He gave a single interview to a regional newspaper in Hardanger in 2009. The interview was not picked up by national press. It existed in a local archive, in print only, until a researcher digitized the edition 6 years later. The workers said that when they pulled up the floorboard containing Eric's buckle, the wood beneath it was warm. Not the ambient warmth of a structure that had been standing in mild weather. Warm the way skin is warm. Warm the way something is warm when something inside it is still working. The official search for Erik Solberg was closed in 1988. Cause of death listed as exposure. Body never recovered. The plateau, where his jacket was found, it's still accessible. It has no fence, no marker, no warning. If you ever find yourself alone in the Nordic interior and the cold stops feeling like cold, if it begins to feel like pressure, like something studying the outline of your body from the outside in, do not lie down. Do not stop moving. Do not speak your own name out loud. Because the ground beneath those latitudes has been listening for a very long time. And what it learns, it keeps. This investigation remains open. If this case found a place in your mind today, you already know why you're here. Subscribe to this unit. Your presence is not a number. It is a signal that you too refuse to accept silence as an answer. The next file is already unsealed. In 1991, a Finnish mining crew broke through a wall of ice 180 meters underground and found a chamber that had been sealed for an estimated 4,000 years. Inside the chamber, tool marks. Fresh tool marks, the kind made by modern equipment. The crew's shift log shows they entered at 6:45 in the morning. Not one of them clocked out.